Oi boys, welcome to another video on the channel. We are back with some picks and predictions, tips and predictions for round 3 of the NRL competition. Now last week we did go 6 from 8. Decent, but let's see if we can do one better, do 2 better and score a perfect round. Let's run it. So for the first game of the week, we got the Manly Warringah Eagles taking on the Parramatta Eels, this being played at 4 Pines Park. I low-key want to take the Eels on the road, just for the fact that their pack hasn't changed, and I feel like although they've been losing, they're not that far off the mark, but I'll be leaning towards the Sea Eagles at home. They get Josh Schuster into the 6, KO Weeks on the bench, pushing Cooper Johns, who's looked pretty good for them, back to the reserves. Yeah, I like the look of Manly so far, and their style of play has been entertaining to watch. Also, Turbo at the back, always keen to see Turbo get a run. These battles between the forward pack is what I'm most looking forward to, and I think the fresher pack will prevail. I do wonder how Parramatta will utilize their bench, because that's what's come under fire recently, but yeah. Give me the Manly Warringah Eagles at 4 Pines Park. Game 2, we got the Newcastle Knights taking on the Redcliffe Dolphins. This being played at McDonald Jones Stadium, and it's the Dolphins' first time on the road. My pick for this game, I'm going to run off the Dolphins on this, ride momentum. There's a couple of massive outs for the Knights. It's a few big outs. Jacob Saifiti obviously, Jaden Braley, KP and Tyson Frizzell. That's a lot of experience out of their forward pack, and that's for that reason why I'm going to take the Dolphins and their hard-nosed veterans to get it done. They have Ray Stone coming back into the fold, but they are missing probably their best player these past 2 rounds, Jeremy Marshall-King, with Cody Nikorima starting at 9. Not much else to say, give me the Dolphins on the road. So for game 3, we got my game of the round. I love the derbies, this one in particular. We have the Sydney Roosters taking on the South Sydney Rabbitohs. This one played at Allianz Stadium. Last time they met, pure chaos. And let's hope that it's not as chaotic in terms of flagrancy, I guess. As far as ins and outs go for the Roosters, they do have Smith playing. Also, Jared Waerea-Hargreaves and Victor Radley make their return. For the Bunnies, you got Devita Totola coming back, and you got Jaime Sele, who is a massive in for their bench. As for my pick for this game, for as undermanned as the Bunnies were last week, especially missing their middles, I think they did pretty well to hang in there, and I know the Chooks are star-studded, but they're still lacking that fluidity in attack, and for that reason, I'm going to take the Bunnies. I think as a unit they work better, and I think they have a more potent bench. A game like this could very well come down to how both benches are utilized, but yeah, it's tough to pick, but I will lean towards the Bunnies. Alright, so game 4, the first game for Super Saturday, we have the Gold Coast Titans hosting the Melbourne Storm. Now, this one, in terms of ins and outs, for the Titans, they have Brian Kelly and a debut for Isaac Fa'aso Malayawi, younger brother of Big Tino. As for the Storm, they've got the ball of muscle out in the centres, and Justin Olam making his return, Tarek Sims, Tui Kamikamitha, and Xavier Coates. So plenty of their, I guess, main men returning, and they will be without Nelson Asofa Solomona. My pick for this one, it has to be the Storm here. A massive bounce back after getting humiliated at home. That's pretty much my reasoning, just expecting a massive bounce back. And the Titans didn't really look that great last week, if I'm being honest, after a pretty good opening round. The second game for Super Saturday sees the North Queensland Cowboys take on the New Zealand Warriors, this one being played at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. The big outs for both teams, Peter Hiku and Scotty Drinkwater. For the Cows and the Warriors, missing Chance, Nickel Klukster and Jackson Ford, so a couple of massive outs for both teams actually. They'll both be fielding some young fullbacks in Tom Chester for the Cowboys and Taine Tuaupiki for the Warriors. Seen a bit of Tom Chester and haven't seen any of the Warriors' new fullback, so I'm pretty intrigued to see how he goes. Should be a good game, another good test for the Warriors, who have looked pretty decent in their opening rounds. As for my pick, it's hard to look past the home team here. I think they will impose their game plan, you know, their slow strangulation if you will. And I think they'll be a tad bit too classy for the Waz. This forward pack battle, it's an exciting matchup. McLean, Fanor Blake, Reece Robson, Wade Egan, Ruben Cotter, Bunty R4, Cohen Hess, Mitch Barnett, who's been outstanding for the Warriors, the young gun Jeremiah Nanai, Manata Niokore, Jason Taumalolo, and Tohu Harris, who's also gotten off to a great start. Like I said, the Warriors pack should make it a good contest, but I'm going to lean off the Cowboys. And for the main event of Super Saturday, we have the Brisbane Broncos hosting the St. George Illawarra Dragons. This should be a banger of a game. In terms of outs, Corey Oates, we all know, broke his jaw last week, and they've got Jesse Arthur sliding into that wing position. Everything else pretty much remains the same from what I see on paper, although Talatawa Mone is in the reserves, so he could potentially slot in for Bud Sullivan. But yeah, I'm going to take the Bronx here. It's been a dream start to the season for the Broncos, knocking off two of the big dogs in the Penrith Panthers and the North Queensland Cowboys. They are heavy faves, but I wouldn't count the Dragons out. Every now and then, they do lull teams into their generic playing style. I'm looking forward to the battle between the two young fullbacks, Reece Walsh coming off one of the all-time debuts for a club, and Tyrell Sloan, who's on a bit of a bounce back himself. Also the battle between the generals, Adam Reynolds, who just got done knocking off some elite playmakers in Cleary and Townsend, not to mention Ben Hunt. You know he gets up for these games at Suncorp, but yeah, I think the Broncos will be too strong, and I'm expecting them to collect the W in front of their home crowd. That brings us to Sunday football. Game 1, we have the Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs taking on West Tigers. A home game for the Dogs playing at the Belmore Sports Ground. In terms of ins and outs, there's some massive outs for the Tigers, losing Dane Laurie, Ice Papali'i, Jake Simpkin, and Tommy Talau. None for the Dogs. My pick for this game, both of these sides have been getting that premium gas in the preseason, and so far, it's the Bulldogs who have lived up to the hype. I'll be taking the Bulldogs here to get it done in front of their home crowd. And I think they might get by comfortably. When we talk about styles of play, the Bulldogs might have the most exciting play style in the league. Well, at least last week, when they knocked Melbourne's top off. The Tigers are just as capable, it's just taking them a little while to kick on. Yeah, give me the Bulldogs and Belmore. And for the final game of round 3, we have the Canberra Raiders taking on the Cronulla Sharks, this one being played at GIO Stadium. In terms of ins and outs, nothing much for either team. There's none for the Sharks, and it's Ata Mariota, the lone out for the Canberra Raiders. There's also still no Josh Papali'i. For this one, I'm going to take the Cronulla Sharks on the road. With or without Nico Hines, they've looked super dangerous, and that's a credit to their coaching staff. Braden Trindle's been so good that people are saying he's hot on Matt Moylan's heels for when Nico does eventually return. But yeah, how do I see this playing out? I think the Sharks will win the power struggle in the forwards and the bench, and I think the class of their outside backs will eventually get them over the line. Will not be surprised though if the Canberra Raiders do what they do, pull them into the trenches, super simplify it and go blow for blow and grind out a win. But I think the Sharks get by on the back of a rolling forward pack and their classy outside backs. But yeah, that's about it for my tips and predictions. If you have any of your own, let me know in the comment section down below. We'll be back with more NRL, IRL next week for the review. As always, if you enjoyed that and would like to see more rugby league related content or more content in general, be sure to sub to the channel. Keep in mind though that I'm predominantly a gaming channel, so if you don't want your feed flooded with rugby league gaming content, do not subscribe. It's probably the first time you've heard someone say don't subscribe, but yeah, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you later.